Welcome to World Alert Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The news broke like a thunderclap. Japan wins largest arms deal since World War II. It was a headline that seemed almost unthinkable just a few years ago, echoing across every major news outlet and social media feed. Digital billboards from Tokyo to New York flashed the headline, stunning the world. The story dominated conversations in boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms alike, as people everywhere tried to process what this meant for the future. For decades, Japan was known for its cutting-edge technology, high-speed trains, and peaceful cityscapes, not for warships or military might. The country's reputation was built on innovation, efficiency, and a steadfast commitment to peace. This announcement shattered that image, signaling a dramatic shift. The shock was palpable on the streets, as people paused their daily routines to absorb the gravity of the news. The deal, a multi-billion-dollar agreement to supply Australia with advanced frigates, was more than business. It was a declaration. It marked a new era in Japan's international relationships and defense strategy. Japan was stepping onto the world stage as a military power, no longer content to remain in the background. The world watched as the nation's self-defense forces took on a new, more assertive role. Beneath the numbers and specs, the real story was Japan's changing identity. The country was grappling with its past, its traditions, and the realities of a shifting global landscape. Years of debate and unease led to this moment, Japan exporting its most advanced military hardware for the first time in nearly 80 years. Lawmakers, industry leaders, and citizens had all weighed in, knowing the stakes were high. The implications were enormous, affecting regional security and the global balance of power. Analysts scrambled to predict how rivals and allies alike would respond to this bold new direction. Governments worldwide scrambled to interpret the move. Emergency meetings were called, and diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent messages as leaders tried to gauge the impact. In Australia, the deal was celebrated as a sign of strengthened partnership and security. In Japan, it stirred both pride and apprehension, sparking debates about national identity and the future. The world had grown used to a pacifist Japan, bound by a constitution that renounced war. Generations had come to see Japan as a symbol of peace and recovery after the devastation of World War II. That foundation was now altered. The legal and moral framework that had defined Japan for decades was being re-examined, and the consequences were profound. This was not just about ships, it was about a nation's identity and the choices it faces in an unstable world. Families across Japan wondered what the future would hold, as uncertainty mingled with hope and anxiety. Japan was rearming for influence and self-preservation, not conquest. The message was clear: this was about protecting interests and allies, not returning to the militarism of the past. The quiet giant was awakening, and the world was watching. As dawn broke over Tokyo, a new chapter in Japan's story was just beginning, with consequences that would ripple far beyond its shores. To truly grasp the magnitude of Japan's recent arms deal, we must first understand the deep historical roots that shaped the nation's approach to peace and security. Our story begins in 1945, a year that marked both devastation and a new beginning for Japan. In the aftermath of World War II, under the watchful eyes of the Allied powers, Japan adopted a new constitution that would redefine its national identity. Central to this constitution was Article 9, a bold declaration that renounced war and the use of force as a means of settling international disputes, fundamentally shaping Japan's post-war identity and values. Instead of a traditional military, Japan established the self-defense forces, tasked solely with protecting the homeland and strictly forbidden from engaging in overseas combat. For decades, Japan went even further, banning weapons exports entirely and sending a clear message to the world about its unwavering commitment to peace. Rather than investing in military might, the nation poured its energy into economic growth, transforming itself into a global leader in technology, manufacturing, and innovation. The US-Japan Security Treaty provided a safety net, allowing Japan to maintain only a minimal military posture while relying on American protection. Throughout the Cold War, Japan stood as a crucial US ally in Asia, yet it steadfastly avoided projecting power beyond its borders. This unique arrangement allowed Japan to flourish, enjoying prosperity and stability without becoming entangled in foreign conflicts. The peace constitution became a source of national pride, symbolizing a decisive break from the militarism of the past and a commitment to a peaceful future. Any attempt to revise Article 9 has consistently faced fierce public opposition, with citizens rallying to defend the nation's pacifist ideals. The collective memory of war runs deep in Japan, making the pursuit of peace not just a policy, but a core part of the national psyche. For decades, this peaceful arrangement seemed unshakable, a permanent fixture in Japanese society. But as the world around Japan began to shift, new challenges emerged, forcing the nation to reconsider its long-held stance on peace and security. The end of the Cold War brought new threats to Japan's doorstep. The world was no longer divided into two predictable camps, and the security environment in East Asia began to shift in unpredictable ways. Japan, once able to rely on the stability of superpower rivalry, now faced a far more complex and uncertain neighborhood. China's rise as a military superpower changed the regional balance. Its rapid military modernization and growing assertiveness at sea sent ripples of concern throughout the region, especially in Japan, which watched as its neighbors' ambitions grew year by year. Chinese vessels began challenging Japanese sovereignty around the Senkaku Islands, repeatedly entering contested waters and testing Japan's resolve. These confrontations became a regular feature of the new security landscape. Meanwhile, North Korea's nuclear and missile programs grew more dangerous, with missiles flying over Japan and triggering nationwide alerts. The threat was no longer theoretical. It was visible in the skies above Japanese cities. The threat was immediate and real, forcing Japan to reconsider its reliance on the U.S. security umbrella. For decades, Japan had trusted that American power would deter any aggression, but now, doubts began to surface. What if America was distracted or unwilling to defend its allies? The possibility of being left to face threats alone became a pressing concern for Japanese policymakers and citizens alike. Japan's pacifist ideals, enshrined in its constitution, were being tested by harsh realities. The dream of permanent peace was colliding with the dangers of a changing world. The idea of being a passive bystander was no longer tenable. Debates intensified in Parliament and among the public, as the nation grappled with how to respond to these new threats. Japan needed to strengthen its own capabilities and play a more assertive role in its own defense. The self-defense forces began to modernize and expand their activities, signaling a new era in Japanese security policy. This shift was driven by necessity, not militarism. Japan's leaders emphasized that these changes were about survival and protecting the nation's way of life, not a return to past aggression. The regional security environment had fundamentally changed, with new dangers emerging on multiple fronts. Vigilance and adaptation became the new watchwords for Japan's defense establishment. Japan's leaders concluded it could no longer afford to be passive. The nation had to take responsibility for its own security, even as it continued to value peace. The era of quiet pacifism was ending, replaced by a new determination to face the challenges of a dangerous neighborhood head-on. Mounting threats in East Asia pushed Japan to rethink its defense policy. In 2014, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reinterpreted the constitution, allowing collective self-defense. For the first time since WW1, Japan could defend allies even if not directly attacked. Abe's government also ended the decades-old ban on arms exports. The new 3 principles on transfer of defense equipment allowed case-by-case exports. Exports were permitted if they contributed to peace and Japan's security. The change aimed to strengthen security partnerships and stabilize the region. It also helped Japan's struggling defense industry by opening global markets. The new policy was both a strategic and economic move. Japan was now a player in the global defense market. With new export rules, Japan cautiously entered defense diplomacy. It began by providing patrol vessels to Southeast Asian nations facing Chinese pressure. These transfers, often framed as aid, built a network of partners for a rules-based maritime order. Japan expanded joint military exercises beyond the US, including Australia, India, and others. Defense cooperation agreements and technology transfers deepened ties. India became a key partner, sharing concerns about China and enhancing military collaboration. Japan's approach focused on capacity building and cooperation, not confrontation. This groundwork built trust and institutional links. It set the stage for Japan's landmark deal with Australia. Australia faced urgent security challenges in a contested Indo-Pacific. Its aging Anzac-class frigates needed replacement to secure sea lanes and regional stability. The C-5000 program sought a modern, versatile warship for the future. The competition was fierce, with bids from Germany, South Korea, Spain, and, for the first time, Japan. Japan's Moami-class frigate was a newcomer, with no export track record. Initially seen as a long shot, the Japanese bid soon stood out. The Moami-class offered advanced technology and operational efficiency. Australian planners saw its unique strengths, especially in anti-submarine warfare. The Japanese proposal quickly became a serious contender. The decision would shape Australia's navy for decades. It was about more than ships. It was about strategic alignment. The stakes were high for both nations. The dark horse was now in the lead. Australia found the Moami-class frigate uniquely suited to its needs. Its advanced anti-submarine warfare capabilities were unmatched, crucial for Australia's security. The ship's integrated mast and automation reduced crew needs and operational costs. Compared to rivals, the Moami offered superior technology and efficiency. German and South Korean designs fell short in key areas. The Moami filled a pressing need for specialized anti-submarine warfare. Shared platforms would boost interoperability between Japanese and Australian navies. The technological edge was decisive. Australia wasn't just buying a ship, it was gaining a strategic advantage. The Moami was the best tool for the job. Australia's selection of the Moami-class frigate was a watershed moment. For Japan, it validated its defense technology and marked its debut as a major arms exporter. The deal, worth billions, boosted Japan's defense industry and global reputation. For Australia, it secured a modern fleet and deepened strategic ties with Japan. The partnership went beyond hardware, enhancing naval interoperability and regional stability. The U.S. welcomed the stronger alliance, seeing it as a robust security network. The deal sent a message to Beijing. Regional democracies were strengthening their defenses. China viewed the deal with concern, seeing a shift in the balance of power. The agreement was more than commercial. Was made to be is den boundaries. To bring that was the May of a major geopolitical move. Its impact would shape Asia's security landscape for years. The frigate deal is the most visible sign of Japan's quiet military revolution. Japan is becoming a more normal military power, raising questions about regional stability. For allies, a stronger Japan means a more reliable partner in a challenging region. Japan's rearmament is seen as a contribution to peace, not a threat. But in China and South Korea, memories of the past fuel suspicion and anxiety. Critics fear a return to militarism and call for transparency. Japan's future role will be defined by its actions and commitment to peace. The world is watching to see if Japan can balance strength with responsibility. The deal with Australia suggests a path forward: partnership, transparency, and shared values. The quiet giant is awakened. Now it must prove its strength as a force for good.